Good morning, children. Today we are learning about history. So you know why we need to learn history. We have to know about our past events from our ancestors, isn't it? So these are useful because we should get the knowledge of how the past events are related to the present situation. So history is very important. So hope you will get bored, but I will make a story out of this history points. Okay. So today we are learning about the chapter 2. It is now chapter 1. First chapter is deleted. So chapter 1, from trade to territory, the company establishes power. So as you know, all the Mughal emperors, you have learned the ancient period in 6th class and medieval period in 7th class. Then now it is a modern period. So the story begins with the Mughal emperor, the last and the most powerful ruler. The Aurangzeb was a powerful Mughal emperor, and he established over a large part of the territory that is known as India. And after his death in 1707, Mughal governors began asserting their authority and establishing regional kingdoms. The British power began to emerge in India from the second half of the 18th century. From the second half of the 18th century, the British originally came to India actually to trade and set up a small trading company, and reluctant to acquire the territories. Their intention was only to trade. The sole purpose was only to trade and gain the profits. So the company first came to India with a charter, royal charter. What is a charter? It is a permission from their authority, from their government to trade with any of the countries in the east. So they have brought the royal charter from Queen Elizabeth I during that time. She was a ruler of England, and she has given a royal charter. So according to that charter, the company, that is the East India Company, has a sole right to trade with India or with any eastern companies. Their main motive was to gain profits, to purchase the goods at cheaper price and sell at the higher prices. So that was the main aim. So this could not prevent any European companies, because so many European companies have came to eastern countries, especially India, that is French, Dutch and Portuguese. They have come and settled in India and started their trades. Okay, so they have entered into the India from the European countries. So we know that in 1498, the famous Portuguese sailor Vasco da Gama has discovered the sea route to India. Okay, so by this it was easy to come and trade here for the Portuguese, Dutch and the French companies from the European countries. So what they have traded with? The fine qualities of cotton, silk and other different types of spices like cardamom, cinnamon. Okay, all these things were taken to the big market in the Europe and gained so much of profits. So the English East India Company found it difficult to separate trade from the politics. It was difficult for them at the beginning of this day. So in 1600, the English East India Company comes with the eastern countries. Then 1651, they have established the first English factory in Bengal. So near Hooghly River in 1651, they have set up their first English factory. Okay, and the company persuaded merchants and traders to settle near the company and do the trade businesses near the factory. And the company also built a fort near the company, around their settlement in 1696. The Fort William in Kolkata was a fort of the company, which they have made all the trade work there. So 2 years later, it was very difficult for them, so they have bribed the Mughal emperors to give the rights on 3 villages, especially on Kolkata. So they have established their company in the Kolkata and acquired that village. So they have, the East India Company has persuaded Aurangzeb to give a foreman. Foreman means the what do you call it? The foreman means it's a rights to grant the company by do the trade without any duty. That is, do the trade without any duties. That is taxes and all. They need not to pay. So like that they have acquired the foreman from the Aurangzeb. But the Bengal Nawab was very rigid person, very strict person, and he is Murshid Quli Khan. But he refused to do the trade in Bengal without any duty. That is, duty-free trade was refused by Murshid Quli Khan. So later this led to the battles. Trade led to the battles. So what happened in 1756? Battle of Plassey is the main event where the company has changed its trade to the territory. This is the main point where the company has started acquiring territories. So what happened after the death of Aurangzeb in 1707? The Bengal Nawabs, that is Murshid Quli Khan and Alivardi Khan and Siraj-ud-Dawla, were very powerful in their dominion in Bengal. So they have refused to give concessions to the company. They did not give any concessions, they did not give any rights. So they were very strict. So this led to the battles. On the other hand, the company declared unjust demands of the local officials who were winning their lands, trades and duty-free trade and demanded a duty-free trade. This conflict between the company, the Nawabs of Bengal finally led to the Battle of Plassey in 1756. So what are the main events here? What has happened in the Battle of Plassey? Let us see now. So Alivardi Khan was a ruler of Bengal after the Murshid Quli Khan. Then Siraj-ud-Dawla became the Nawab of Bengal in 1756 after the death of Alivardi Khan. So the company wanted a puppet ruler. That means the company wanted the ruler to be run the province under their hands, on their hands. So they tried to help one of the Siraj-ud-Dawla's rivals to become the Nawab, and they have asked the person, that is Mir Jafar, to help in the battle so that they can give the Nawab they can make him as a Nawab of Bengal after the death of Siraj-ud-Dawla. So that person also was mixed hands with the Britishers, as the East India Company officials, and killed this Siraj-ud-Dawla in the Battle of Plassey. So so company officials after the Battle of Plassey, what happened? After the defeat at the Plassey, Siraj-ud-Dawla was assassinated and Mir Jafar was made as a Nawab. And when Mir Jafar protested after becoming Nawab, they understood that the Mir Jafar were also to be removed from the place of Nawab, and Mir Qasim was made as a Nawab of Bengal in place of Mir Jafar. In 1764, when Mir Qasim raised his voice against the company, he was also defeated in the Battle of Buxar. So Mir Qasim was against the company rules, so he was also defeated, was also killed in the Battle of Buxar. So that's why that is the main point where the company understood that. So the company decided themselves to become the Nawabs of the Bengal. So they have taken the Diwani rights of Bengal. So in 1765, the company, the Mughal emperors were appointed the company as Diwan of province in Bengal. Diwan means complete rights, whatever the judiciary policies or administrative policies or financial policies were under the control of the company. So Mir Jafar died in 1765 and the company decided to become the Nawab themselves. And in 1765, the Mughal emperor appointed the company as a Diwan of Bengal. The Diwani allowed the company to use the vast revenue resources of Bengal instead of buying goods against gold and silver they brought from Britain. So they are bringing gold and silver from the Britain here, and they are giving them in place of these cotton, spices and everything, and they are making the profit in the European. So that process was, the trade was stopped. Once they acquired these provinces of Bengal, they have stopped this trade and wanted to decided to become the Nawab of the province Bengal. So these revenues could be used to purchase cotton. So company officials become nabobs. Nabobs. So N-A-B-O-B-S. N-A-B-O-B-S. Nabobs. They used to pronounce like this, nabobs. So it is one who made like this. That is Robert Clive. He is a European. He came to England came to Madras from England in 1743 at the age of 18, and when in 1767 he left India with a huge amount of money. And the British Parliament was cross-examined him in 1772 and he found guilty. Then he committed suicide in 1774 because of his ill nature. So not only this Robert Clive, all the company officials are having the same succeeded in making money in India. So company rule expands. So next topic is company rule expands. So between 1757 and 1857, the company has ruled the India. So they have become the Nawabs now, the empire, the successful emperor of this India. So they are nowhere now traders. So instead of direct military attack, it used political, economic and diplomatic methods to influence the states, and they followed different patterns while occupying the Indian states. So after the Battle of Buxar, the company appointed residents in Indian states. They were political and commercial agents, and their job was to serve for the company, and the residents began to interfere in the internal affairs of the Indian states. They tried to decide who was to be the successor of the throne, who would be appointed in the administrative post. Soon the company forced the states into subsidiary alliance. So there was a confusion after the Battle of Buxar. They were confused who should be in the throne, but it was not at all successful. The company has introduced a new policy, that is subsidiary alliance. Subsidiary alliance. That means, according to the terms of the alliance, the Indian rulers were not allowed to have an independent army forces. They were to be protected by the company, and they should get payment for it, to protect the country. So this is called as subsidiary alliance. So many Indian rulers were not allowed to have the independent army. So they were to be protected by the company, and they have to pay for the subsidiary forces by the company. So if the Indian rulers failed for the payment, the part of their territory was taken away by the companies. So like that, so many territories were under the hands of company. So like Awadh and Hyderabad were also forced to cede the territories on this subsidiary alliance. Next, coming to the southern side, that is Tipu Sultan. We are all aware of Tipu Sultan. He is a Mysore ruler, the legend of Mysore, and the tiger of Mysore, we can say. Why the tiger of Mysore? Because once in a forest he went for hunting. So he fought with a tiger, and the tiger was defeated. So that's why the name got as tiger of the Mysore. So his father, Tipu Sultan's father, was Hyder Ali. Hyder Ali ruled from 1761 to 1782, and his son was Tipu Sultan, ruled from 1761 to 1782 to 1799. So Mysore controlled the profitable trade of the Malabar coast, where the company purchased pepper and cardamom. So in 1785, Tipu Sultan stopped the export of sandalwood, pepper and cardamom to the ports of this kingdom. So he also disallowed local merchants from the trading with the company, and close relationships with the French traders, and modernized the army with the help of the French. Then East India Company fought 4 wars with the Mysore kings, that is Anglo-Mysore wars. So in the years 1767 to 1769, and second war was between 1780 to 84, and third war was between 1790 to 92, and the last Anglo-Mysore war was in 1799, where the Tipu So in the Battle of Seringapatam, 1799, Tipu Sultan was defeated in the war. He was killed. So next is war with Marathas. Next kingdom, next territory was the Maratha kingdom. The company tried to destroy the Maratha power from the late 18th century. The Marathas were divided into many states under different chiefs belonging to the dynasties like Scindias, Holkars, Gaikwads, and Bhosles. So they were put together as a confederacy. That means they are all united. Maybe they are having under different chiefs, but they are all having one complete unit that is called as confederacy. So under the Peshwa who belonged to the Pune, and here Mahaji, Scindia and Nana Fadnis were two famous Maratha statesmen of the late 18th century. The company subdued the Marathas in a series of wars. So they also fed with wars. That is Anglo-Maratha wars between 1775 to 1782, and second war in 1803 to 1805, and the third war in 1870 to 1819. So finally, the company acquired this Maratha kingdom also. Next thing is, after acquiring this Mysore and Maratha kingdom, the company has declared itself as paramount. Paramount means supreme power. That is, the whole India as a whole, it has started acquiring one by one all the territorial expansion. It has acquired the policy of territorial expansion. So under the Governor General of Lord Hastings, he came in actually before the in 1830 to 1823 he ruled, and he introduced a new policy called as paramountcy, and company claimed that its authority was paramount or supreme and its power was greater than that of Indian rulers or Indian states. The British took the control of Afghanistan, Sindh and Punjab and secured their control over the northwest. Next concept is the doctrine of lapse. Doctrine of lapse is under the Governor General of Lord Dalhousie. He was, according to this doctrine, if an Indian ruler died without a male son is not there, the kingdom is not having any son, a king was not having any son, or next ruler is not there, so that kingdom would become the part of the company territory. Like that, so many kingdoms were under the control of the company, that is Satara, Nagpur, Sambalpur, Udaipur and Jhansi and Awadh. They have come under the control of the company officials, and they were also acquired, and they have given an agreement that they have to oblige for a duty to take over all the territories if they don't have any male head. So next is like that all the territories were under the control of the company. So they have set up a new administration now. So the British territories in India were broadly divided into administrative units called as presidencies. Three presidencies were made. That is Bengal presidency. Next, second one is Madras presidency, and third one is Bombay presidency. Like that, each presidency was ruled by a Governor General, and the supreme head of the administration was become a Governor General. The first Governor General for India was Warren Hastings after the acquiring of territories in 1773 to 1785. He was the first Governor General in India. So Warren Hastings introduced several administrative reforms, especially in the sphere of justice. So the new system was introduced in the sphere of justice. That is, each district will have two courts. One is criminal court, that is also called as Fauzdari Adalat, and the second one is civil court, that is Diwani Adalat. The principal figure in India district was a collector who was responsible to collect the revenue and taxes and maintain the law and order. Next is the company army. Company army was also introduced. There were Mughal army as well as company army. So it was introduced, it was replaced with the sepoy called as sepoy army. Company army is also called as sepoy army. So finally, in the early